basically get the most out of your team, right? How do we take our team and make it run circles around our competition? And so how to run a team that gets predictable results, but more importantly, a team that will run circles around who you're trying to compete against. So I'm going to hit on, okay, who should be on the team, how you should run the week, what tools you should give this team. I want to hit on, whenever you're creating a North Star metric, who's accountable for it? We're going to talk about a reverse dashboard and how you can use that to hold everybody accountable. So let's dive into it. One exciting thing, this is one of the core pieces of the growth marketing operating system. This is basically how we run growth, and we just put it live, I believe, last week. So again, you can check it out, or hey, you're going to get part of it for free today. So as we kind of hit on the growth marketing operating system, as far as where we're at, in the past, we've talked about your North Star, we've talked about strategy. Now it's about getting the team to run your process for growth. Okay, let's dive into it. Now I want to give a disclaimer. What I'm about to talk about could be perceived as very boring. If you know anything about systems and process, you know that one, it's boring, but two, if you do this the right way, if you have the bandwidth to pull this off, it creates space in your day. It creates space in your calendar where you can be creative and you can get your time back. So get your coffee ready, whatever you need to do. Let me kind of walk through it. So you're like, all right, Jim, thank you. Let's do this. Let's create our growth team. Who should be on that team? So this is what I'm thinking through. If you're building a team from scratch or you're looking at your team, here are some roles that I want. And I'm going to talk about the tools as well, because I think that's important. So that first role, this could be viewed as like the CEO. It could be the CMO, the head of growth. But to keep it simple, let's call it the visionary. They're the person that is in charge of setting the growth goal and the direction for the year. This is for the entire company or maybe for your division. Okay, so you have that top of level visionary. And then below them, you need the growth leads. These are the people, the visionaries, like, we need to be amazing at SEO, search engine optimization. We need to be amazing at paid. You need leads that can own those channels, that can own those tactics. The third thing you need, I'm actually going to go down here to what I call build and deploy. So this growth lead, they might be able to execute on SEO or paid ads, or maybe they need support from a build and deploy team. So for example, your ad team, you need copywriters, you need video editors, you need people doing scripts and storyboarding. These are people supporting the growth lead. The fourth thing you need, this is something that's a little counterintuitive, but I want a project manager. I want someone that their number one focus is being like, hey, what are deadlines? What are milestones? How many tests, how many ad creatives are we getting live per month, per week? How many SEO blog posts are we doing? And then finally, this is a little bit of a luxury, but if you have the budget, I want a data and research team. I want a data analyst. I want someone not just doing the quantitative analysis, like funnel mapping and knowing conversion rate. I want them doing the qualitative analysis. That means surveys. That means polls. And so one thing I want to hit on, here's a little tip. Not all of these people have to be in-house. A lot of these people could be freelancers. They could be hourly. They could be offshore analysts, or they could be agencies. I do think you want the core visionary to be in-house. I also like having that project manager in-house, but a lot of these other things you can farm out. And that can be good if you want to get people that are part-time to get your costs down. But that's something to call out. Now, one philosophy I have with my team is I like to have smaller, leaner teams, but I will over-tool them. Basically, if my team's like, hey, can we test this tool? It's always a blanket yes to test it out. So the question to ask yourself is, what are the tools you can give your team to give them superpowers? Is it a traffic tool? Is it a conversion tool? Is it customer CRM tools like HubSpot or Klaviyo? Or maybe it's efficiency tools. And I even put various AI tools that we're testing in here. from ChatGPT to Opus for video, and then data tools. We're big fans of Zapier Central to be able to link a lot of our data together. So anyway, something to think about. We're going to do a future talk on the right tech stack to get the most out of your team, but I wanted to tease some ideas there. Excuse me. Okay, you've got your team. Now I want to start with the high level goal with what you're trying to do with this growth team. And again, your visionary should be helping set this. And I like to default to simplicity. If you look at 2025 or if you look at Q1, the big question is, what is your goal? What is your North Star metric? And so what I want that visionary to do is be like, okay, here's our goal for the next 90 days. So for example, B2B company could be, hey, we want to get new monthly recurring revenue of 40K. Or an e-commerce company could be, hey, we want to hit 90,000 in sales per month. And then based off this, I want you to choose a North Star metric. This is the metric that you look at first when you're looking at your dashboard, right? And so it could be a leading indicator, like on the B2B side. It's like, hey, we need 10 sales calls booked per week, and that'll help us hit our goals. Or the e-commerce agency or e-commerce company could say, hey, we want a return on ad spend of over 3 as we're spending, $1,000 per day. And then we have these secondary metrics where you want them to complement the primary North Star metric. Maybe one looks at quality, the other looks at quantity, right? And so that leads to the next thing. So you're like, okay, got it. North Star metric. We've got our team. We got our focus. Now let's talk about your scorecard. And I'm going to talk about how this all rolls into how you manage your week. But this is, I think, the most important weekly dashboard that you look at. So your scorecard, this basically has 10 to 15 metrics that help you gauge the success of your growth team and of your business. If you do the EOS Entrepreneur Operating System, they have a similar one. And so for here, you can see with this business, we're able to see, okay, here's our cash balance, here's our revenue per week, here's top of funnel metrics like traffic, ad spend, return on ad spend, more bottom of the funnel metrics, conversion rate, average order value, and then how our emails are performing. And notice how at a glance, I can see how our company is performing. Now there's a couple, two big call outs. One, I want you to have one person own each metric and have them actually manually input their update every week. I love me a good dashboard, but if you have to actually write in the numbers, they'll have such a bigger impact. You will actually remember it and you'll feel it. The other thing, if you have a tripwire or a goal, this helps you understand, are we hitting the goal for the week? So if you're hitting the goal, you can keep it in black. If it is below your goal or tripwire, you make it red. That way, as you look at the data and you see a red number, you're like, hey, that's an issue. We need to talk about it. So it's like, hey, our return on ad spend is 200%. What happened there? It's like, oh, well, we pushed a product that was a low price point, so it impacted the average order value, which impacts ROAS. Okay, got it. So, and the scorecard is crucial because it lets you know what's going on, but two, it helps set the conversation for the rest of the week. Okay, so you got your scorecard. The other thing is having the growth calendar. So with the growth calendar, this is at a high level, you're planning out the year. And we've talked about this in previous conversations where your growth team, you have month 1 to month 12, you've mapped out 2 big things. You're always on growth channels. Hey, we're always running Facebook ads, always doing search ads, always doing SEO. And then you have your marketing moments. These are those one-off events, whether it's, hey, we attend 4 conferences a year, or we do 5 product launches per year. We do 3 giveaways. We do 2 big discounts. You start to calendar out all the things that you're going to do. And again, you've got the 2 categories, the always on channel, and then you have the growth events or the marketing moments that you calendar out throughout the year. And the reason why this is important is I want you to take that high-level growth calendar that you see here, and then you turn it into an action tracker. So what is this? This is a reverse dashboard. So the scoreboard tells us what's happening, right? It's a little bit of a lagging indicator. Your action tracker is a leading indicator. So based on that growth calendar, It's like, hey, we're always doing, ads. We're always sending emails. We're always doing blog posts. You put your goal of what is your output for those each week or each month. You put an owner and you say, hey, are we hitting that goal? And here's why this is magical. The reverse dashboard allows you to hold the team accountable in a way where it's not as confrontational. It's built into the system. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes you'll have the rah-rah speech, the rah-rah meeting of what you want to do, and people go off and they start losing focus. They start missing deadlines. And it's not because they're not working hard, it's because they're not focused. And this kind of action tracker allows you to keep focus and keep people accountable. One other big call out is notice how the tripwire for these have different cadence. We do one product launch per month, but we're doing, a whole PR email blast per week. So there's different cadence to these. So you'll want to factor that in to figure out what's right for you and what aligns with your growth calendar. Okay, you've got the scorecard. You've got the action tracker. The next thing is your testing log. Because with your growth calendar, not everything is a guarantee. You're doing tests every quarter. It's like, hey, this quarter, a marketing moment is to do a big test around a persona of potential health enthusiasts for our product. So that's a test. And so with your testing log, you're going to be looking at your testing pipeline. Like, okay, here's a test we want to do for the upcoming quarter, for the upcoming month. And this is something we're visiting every week where it's like, here's the test that we have. Here's the area of the funnel that it impacts, the status of it. And then we do the ICE framework. So you have impact, confidence, and ease, where you can start to quantify this test and where it should fall in your growth calendar, in your pipeline. And so the reason why it's important to quantify these test ideas is because it allows you to, one, let the best idea stand on its merits because it's quantified and it's not letting the person with the loudest voice in the room get their idea across. The numbers get it across. The second reason is, as you're revisiting this, you want to be like, okay, we're doing this meeting every week or bi-weekly. You're able to come in and you're like, okay, what do we want to focus on at top of the funnel? Okay, boom, cold email has the best score. Let's focus on that. That way you can be efficient whenever you're running these meetings. Okay, one thing I want to jump to, you've got your team. We've got our standard scorecard and action tracker. I want to talk about how you should run this team, how you should run your week. And so there's a couple core meetings I want you to have. So on Mondays, I call them data days. This is where we're basically getting back on the same page to set our goal for the week. And so here's the agenda for that data meeting. We do the scorecard for 5 minutes. We're looking at those 10 to 15 key metrics and we're seeing how they're trending. The second thing we're doing is we're looking at the action tracker, because the scorecard, we're going to have some issues, like things that aren't working. And then we'll go to the action tracker. Hey, did we do all the things we said we would do? And then from there, we're revisiting the growth calendar. We're revisiting that testing roadmap. And why are we doing that third? Because we've looked at the data, we've seen what is working, what's not, and it allows us to start to reshape what the growth calendar should be, what our testing roadmap should be. And then there's a fourth thing I want you to do. And this is where we start to look at the research calendar. We start to see what insights we're gathering. So let me jump to that real quick. So when I say research calendar, at the start of a quarter, at the start of a year, I want you to ask yourself this question. What do we want to learn? What do we want to learn with this new ad campaign? What do we want to learn with this new landing page? What do we want to learn with this new initiative that we're pushing? I think a lot of times we're moving so fast, we don't think from a learning perspective. So to make sure you don't forget that, create your research calendar. So again, this is a quarter, 12 weeks. And the first week, we're like, okay, who's the team that's in charge of research and do they have the tools? And what do we want to learn? So for example, we're going to do a poll or a survey 2 times this quarter. One is a poll to happy customers. One is a survey to website visitors that don't convert. We're going to do a heat map, scroll map session recording. We're going to do that once this quarter. We're going to do user testing twice this quarter. And so when you do this, you calendar this out and you put a due date with it. So when it comes to this meeting, it's like, hey, it's week 3. We just got the heat maps in. Let's look at it. And this is a meeting where you're able to pull that off. And then the final 5 minutes of the meeting is doing a recap. What are the next steps? And then I'm a huge fan of scoring the meeting. What does that mean? You literally go around the room, it could be your Zoom room, and you're like, hey, scale of 1 to 10, how was this meeting? You could be like, hey, this was a 9. We were efficient. We hit on the numbers. We have action steps. This was great. Or it's like, hey, this was a 2. We didn't even talk about the data. We went off on a tangent on something that doesn't matter. We need to really maximize the time. Because I don't know about you, but I kind of despise meetings. And so for me, as much as I can make them efficient or make them not necessary, I want to do that. So I like to hold them accountable. Okay. All right, cool. Sorry, Al, I just saw your comment. Okay, cool. All right, so that's the first meeting I have on Mondays. The second type of meeting that I want you to build out for your lean growth team is what I call a task force meeting. So what does that mean? Based on your visionary who set the vision for your growth goals for 2025, you then have growth leads that are going to execute on it. So maybe one is around paid ads. Like, hey, we're spending 80% of our budget on Meta and Instagram. We should probably calendar out the time to be black belt at that and really focus on it. So I want to do a weekly strategy sprint on Tuesdays or Thursdays. This could be the same if you're doing, I don't know, content marketing or SEO or email. So your growth leads should be running their own strategy sprint. And so it's all about what's the goal of this deep dive if you're focused on a tactic or channel. Then you're brainstorming around it. And then you're scoring and ranking your ideas. And then again, you do a recap and talk about next steps. So let me kind of show that in action. So this is for our brand Neat. And we sell sweat-proof shirts. When we do a strategy session, we're looking at slides like this because ad creative is such a huge lever for our brand. We're constantly looking at what's working, what's not, getting very nuanced. So like we've seen that this format on the right with videos is working well, but it started to fatigue. What if we put copy on top of it? So we brainstorm copy together, we look at it, and this one in the top left is actually working the best. This one on the left, we started to see that this structure worked with a static image. And we're like, hey, let's test, showing a face. Let's test really showing sweat. Let's show what looks like native content. And this one in the top left is actually performing the best. So these strategy sessions, it's very focused on that growth lead's main objective and the biggest levers to pull. Because if creative is a big lever, let's go all in and give it the time and energy that is needed to do that the right way. Okay. So those are two big meetings I want your team to have. One is the weekly data meeting. The second are your task force meetings. Focus on your specific tactic or channel. Okay, the third thing I want you to do is, this is the quarterly growth review. And so what are you doing in this meeting? First, you're looking at the scorecard recap for the quarter. And again, you can even do this on a monthly basis if you're really trying to accelerate velocity. Sometimes we'll start monthly, then move to quarterly. The second thing I want you to do after looking at the data for the quarter or month, I want you to do a recap and be like, okay, how did we do from an action tracker perspective? Did we run the amount of experiments we wanted to run? What did we learn from our insights? And really start to understand the highs and lows. And that's how we'll prioritize it, highs and lows for the month or for the quarter. And then it starts to drive your planning for the next quarter. And this is when I'm looking at that growth calendar. It's like, hey, for Q2, we talked about wanting to do a quiz funnel, but actually we're seeing traction with this other persona. We think we should reassess that. Or, hey, we had really good success with a podcast tour. How can we find another way to do that in this upcoming quarter? And so I want to do a pretty deep dive on planning for the next 90 days or for the remainder of the year. What should be in the growth calendar, what you should be testing. And then we're doing recaps, next steps, and always scoring the meeting. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. You're seeing like first who should be, so let me go back to the slide. Who should be on the team? Here are the core roles that I want you to have, right? And then we went through how you should run your week. You've got the Monday weekly data meetings, and then based on your growth leads, they're having task force meetings, and then you're having your growth quarterly review. And then I kind of armed you with the tools. I want you to have your action tracker, which is your reverse dashboard to hold your team accountable. And then the other big one is your scorecard. I want you to have this scorecard so you at a glance know the health of your growth team and how marketing is doing. But here's one really crucial thing that I want to hit on, and it's around culture, right? If you do not have the right culture, this strategy doesn't matter. None of this matters. So when you're building your team, you're really asking yourself, okay, how do I get them bought in on trying to move fast, on how to do test and learn? So you could definitely have that rah-rah speech, but a few days after that, people might forget it. So instead, it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. So here's some things, some tips to build a culture of creating this fast-moving, agile team. So first, what do you applaud? At the end of a quarter, are you applauding, how many times you failed, how many experiments you ran, or are you just applauding someone that had like a really cool idea? For us, we actually applaud failure, saying that like, hey, it's okay to mess up. That's a little bit of a badge of honor because when we fail, we're actually learning. And that leads to the second thing. If it's about what you applaud, we applaud how many experiments that we run. So we're trying to run weekly experiments. So that's 12 per quarter, because it's not about or I guess the quote is, what you measure gets managed. So for us, it's really that input of like, hey, if we're running the right amount of experiments, it's going to lead to the results that we want. The other thing is how you work. By doing this cadence of meeting with weekly data meetings and with the weekly strategy sprints, you're starting to really practice this agile method of being able to test, learn, get feedback, and iterate. So that's another big part. And then the final thing, what are your rituals with your team? So there's two things that you could do that you could add to the end of a meeting. One is the kind of oops section of a meeting, where Sarah Blakely does this at Spanx, where basically on Fridays, she talks about the things that she messed up because she wanted to create a culture of innovation, knowing that you're going to mess up. And so that's one tactic you could deploy. The second one is this idea of show and tell. If you want to create a culture where people are thinking outside the box, they're testing new tools, they're testing AI projects, add a show and tell section to your meetings. So we do this actually on Thursdays. We have an AI council where each week someone is tasked with not just like playing with a new AI tool, but incorporating it into our client workflow. We have them incorporated into the GrowthHit workflow to see how it can help us do our job better or do it more efficiently. And the exciting thing is these little things can really start to snowball in how it changes the tone of a meeting and changes the culture. And it really helps people up their game. And you'll start to see the people that are the A players that kind of rise up and really want to pull this off. And then the final thing with culture that I want to put out there is if you want to create a culture of being very data driven, I would really push you to have an insight vault. And so what that is, if you have a data analyst on your team, I would have them own this. If not, it might be up to the visionary. But basically, after every test or campaign you do, I want you to talk about what you learned, right? So whether it's a winning test or a losing test or just an observation from something that happened. And this can allow you to really be a team that values learning and really starts to use those insights to drive action. So again, if you're trying to create a culture of being data-driven, this is another tool to have in your tool belt to help pull that off. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful as far as ways to build this data-driven team, right? We talked about the right people to have in the right seats, the tools to have, how to run your week, how to run your meetings, and how to build culture. And again, this is a part of the overall growth marketing operating system. And honestly, it's probably the linchpin, because if you have the right team, you're going to be able to create your North Star metric, create your strategy with the growth calendar. You're going to have that process and the data to iterate. But the linchpin truly is the team. And again, really excited about the growth marketing operating system that we just launched. Check it out if you would like. We'll put a link in the comments. And some other kind of notes. We have some exciting courses coming up or free workshops. Next week, I'm bringing on our head of growth, Jordan Summers. We're going to talk about how to scale your ad budget from basically $10 a day to $1,000 per day, and how to do that in a cost-effective manner. And then the following week, we're going to do what we're calling the sold out playbook for Shopify companies. How to go from taking over a Shopify store, sitting on a bunch of inventory, and then how to sell out basically in 180 days. We're able to do that with Neat. So we're going to kind of show behind the curtain on everything we did to pull that off. But if you have other ideas for content that you would like to see, let us know. We'd love to put it out there. But thank you guys so much for the time today, and hopefully you got something out of today. And if you ever need me, I'm just Jim@growthhit.com. Would love to hear from you and know of any other content you would like us to share. So thank you so much.